right, guys,
What's
welcome back to another episode of the Off Balance. We were having a little discussion behind. We're back with Corey. What's up, Corey? How are you doing?
Thanks for having me again.
I'm like, yeah, our pleasure, man. It's good to have. Yeah, no. Actually, we were talking the other day. It was like I had some good comments on the podcast we did, and usually we only have bad comments. So since you came, we have good comments. Sounds you good?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. What about you guys?
Good, Val. How are you, man?
Yeah, surviving.
The usual cold-blooded.
This is funny because I have a Russian guy in my gym, and he's a particle physicist. The guy's brilliant. He worked at the Hadron Collider. It's an amazing dude. And every single time I ask him how he's doing, he's from Siberia, by the way. Every single time he goes, surviving. That's it.
That's all you need.
That's a mindset.
What else do you need to do? That's the mindset you gotta keep.
Yeah, that's probably something they learn like over in the East, you know. But that's where you're saying he's a particle physicist.
Yeah, he's the kid. Dude's a genius. He like graduated college and went right to working at the top of his field in the world. So yeah,
that sounds like someone who's like building a nuclear bomb in your backyard.
Is it the guy with a weird half guard sweep to the left?
Does he use a what?
A half guard sweep to the left, like the weird half guard.
No,
not this guy.
No. This guy, he only trains like maybe like twice a week. He's a really good dude. He has a family and he works full time, and he actually just comes, I think, to like get all the aggression out because he's a pretty fucking hard roll, like just on pure will.
That's crazy.
Wow.
What's that about though? That half guard sweep, Val? You're talking about?
Yeah, I didn't.
You have a brown belt from. He used to train at Marcelo's.
Oh, okay. So this guy's also Russian. Yeah, that's a different dude. That's Andre. He got his purple belt from Marcelo.
He has a pretty neat setup for a sweep, like his weird half guard.
So he lets you put him, you know, like if you're smash, like knee smash, you know, like a wing sweep from a knee smash. So he has some variations of that he uses.
So he's like, when you say wing sweep, you mean like a knee lever?
Yeah, so he's in, not exactly. So yes and no.
Okay.
So knee lever, I think maybe you're meaning like John Wayne, like when you pinch your knees and okay. So there's that. He does this when both legs are smashed together. So you're on top of both his legs, or maybe even you're in a leg weave. And you'll see this often, like sweeping like to the side of your overhook with the hook on that side. So like it's like a single hook backwards hook sweep, and it's called a wing sweep.
Like a Yoko Sumigaeshi, basically, but with an overhook.
It is, yeah. Well, I mean, Sumigaeshi means like corner reversal, right? So anytime you're taking somebody with a hook over their shoulder, technically it's a Sumigaeshi, but it's more similar to a judo Sumigaeshi throw than a traditional jiu-jitsu hook sweep is. Does that make sense?
So his knees are like pointing to the outside, like to the.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be like a Yoko almost.
If both my knees are pointed right, but I'm using my left leg to sweep you to my left, it's a wing sweep, which is also a Sumigaeshi. So it's like just
for us to make sense, I think we would say Yoko Sumigaeshi. The way we learned it would be like a modified version. Let's say could be from anywhere, like from a high sting position, knees pointing out, and then shooting the guy over and around.
And I guess because he's a judo guy, like he'll use Uchimata, and then sometimes if he's trying Uchimata and he gets taken down, he'll switch to the wing sweep or the Sumigaeshi and take you the other way.
Yeah, nice. You can use it like into like in a single leg situation or stuff like that. Obviously, if you have like the overhook, right?
That's what he does.
Okay, I see what you're talking about.
So we narrowed down this mystery. We have the correct Russian guy and the correct technique.
And now I know what's a wing sweep.
Val, how do you say corner throw? Is that what Sumigaeshi is in Russian?
Corner reversal. Yeah.
Corner reversal.
In Russian?
That's the direct translation, yeah.
Yeah. In Russian. That's what we're gonna call the move.
I like that.
To be honest, I have no idea. For me, whenever I watch any any instructionals like sambo instructionals or judo instructionals from Russia, I'm getting super confused because everything I learned everything here, and
Russian has just been faking this accent for years.
Gives me a charm, but honestly, like here, let's say judo as well, they use Japanese terms, right? And it's standardized on Japanese terms. In Russia, they use the translation to Russian. So basically, what like maybe wrestling uses terms. Actually, what technique means in Russian, but I never learned this in Russian, so I have to process. Like outside drip is gonna be a outside drip in Russian, but I've never heard it in this way.
Okay.
It doesn't exist. Basically, it's like in it's a bit like in French. We don't have like names for underhook or outside reap. It just doesn't exist. Someone has to create it.
Exactly. A good example will be a seonage throw. Any seonage, which are many, and Japanese, they have like Japanese versions and Japanese names for every version, right? In Russian, it's gonna be just a throw of the back. That's it.
Okay. I see. You told me you were watching instructionals of like sambo and jiu-jitsu Russians. Anybody you'd recommend to watch? I'd be super curious to see what they're teaching.
Nothing comes out from the top of my head. I just watch some random guys, and there is a guy actually. He's a Russian guy. I think he's based somewhere in New York. He's been a long time coach, sambo coach there, and he teaches in Russian. And he has a sambo fusion school. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well. So
like I think you could watch Taza, you could watch some old matches from like Khabib when he was sambo champ. Then Islam Makhachev, like a couple of guys that are in the UFC that are from the like Dagestan. I'm sure there's like a lot of matches from there, like from their beginning.
And if you check out, so I was just Googling. I wasn't just checking text, by the way. I was Googling. This guy that I used to watch sambo video. This is like, okay, so before Danaher's leg lock set, and even like as in those couple of years before, there were some other ones that came out. Like, Stefan Kesting and him and Rob Bernacki had a leg lock set too. And like, there was some stuff. There was Dean Lister's set, but there wasn't like you couldn't find all the answers you were looking for is what I'm trying to say. So like, I used to go and look at these Scott Sonnen. So there's a guy named Scott Sonnen, and he has these old sambo tapes. And I mean, a lot of it, like you would look at now and be like, that's nonsense. But then there's also positions done that we could look at and be like, oh shit, like that's honey hole. No one's using honey hole. You know what I mean? And then you could be like, okay, I'd have to adjust this for jiu-jitsu. But so there's a lot of catch guys and sambo guys that I was looking at, like Gokor. You know what I mean? Looking at when I wanted leg lock information, and there just wasn't really.
Yeah, especially like around that time. It's so long ago. Like these guys were like doing like the beginning basically of. Now there's like a system, obviously, with what John has been doing, but before that it was like scattered all around.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so like what I like. I mean, again, if you want to get into Danaher, what I like about Danaher is like because I'm classically educated. Like he does a good job of taking information, and he'll be the first to say it. He makes up stuff, but there's lots of stuff he doesn't make up. He just reorganizes in an academic fashion that makes it easier for people to retain and learn. And one of those things, like for me, that's the big benefit is that a lot of this information was available in different places, disorganized, not maybe perfectly technical, you know what I mean? And then like he really kind of brought it all together and packaged it in a way that everybody could see it systematically and understand it. So I love that. I've studied all his stuff, but before that, you really did have to go reach and grab maybe a good idea from a video set that had a bunch of other really confusing nonsense in it, and then try to fit it into the.
You gotta try it out in the gym too, like to see if it actually works. Because there's some bullshit out there, obviously, that you try and you're like, it might work on you, like on your blue belts, but try that on like a black belt world champion, and that's the biggest part, right? It has to work on like the toughest guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen. Think about what was magical about jiu-jitsu, right? Like, so what makes us unique is like our guard, right? So other sports have top game. Their passing isn't as advanced, but that's only because their guard isn't as advanced. So like jiu-jitsu has this guard and this guard passing that's advanced. And then like in other areas, I mean, wrestling, sambo, we took a lot from those other areas. The difference is that because we had an open rule set, when we took those techniques, we had to make them work. So they were good ideas that wouldn't work against us, even when they were still good ideas, because we may have just an overall like problem solving kind of mindset where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this. And then you take that into the sport, jiu-jitsu takes it and it makes it work against that. And then like, oh, well, we're going to fix all the areas where this wouldn't stand up to pressure, you know? So like my point is that like jiu-jitsu took leg locks from sambo and made them better. They're better because of jiu-jitsu, but they don't exist because of jiu-jitsu. They existed before jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that. Like the position and the leg lock itself would like exist, but they've changed quite a bit because of like what we done to them. Like,
the technical effectiveness is novel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that where they're coming from?
Well, that's one place they're coming from. It's one place.
Oh, sick. Sure.
Sick.
Some of them, yeah, absolutely. Like they come from like some Langan like come from like judo, from sambo. So like John, I think obviously in some of his posts that are like fucking paragraphs, like you can probably find like sometimes he talks about that where like he took like ideas from like different sports, and that's one of the reasons why he's using like all the Japanese like names, because a lot come from judo, like a lot of like entanglement from like old rule set where it was like legal to do. Like now you can't like just jump scissor in judo. I don't think you can actually.
No, it's called kinishiwaza. I think it's a band technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Kanebasami,
yeah.
No, I mean kinishiwaza means band technique. Kanebasami is the name of the technique.
Yeah, exactly. So the rule set changed so much with the Olympics. Is like you don't see these things that are kind of like forgotten now. But if you go back and like Danaher like watched so much tape and so much stuff, and obviously being in contact with guys like Dean Lister, like guys back in the days, and he was like just like gathering all the knowledge and then like creating that system that he has now.
Yeah, I mean most of this stuff I think like I would argue is objectively improved both technically and conceptually. So like technically that's obvious. The details we have to break legs and stuff is so much more refined against pressure, but even conceptually. So I forget the guy's name. I think it's Stephen Kopfer. You know the catch guy? The big fan. Okay. So
what's his name?
He's a sambo guy as well, right?
Sambo guy, yeah.
Yeah, he also in New York, I think.
He's from New York as well.
Damn, man, I am clueless. I don't know what you guys are talking about right now.
So check this guy out. He has this. There's a video of him from maybe like 2009 or 2010, and he's explaining. So listen to how similar this will sound, and I'll explain why there's problems with it that I think Danaher fixed. So he would have leg locks defined as being inside or outside. Okay, whereas I think Danaher would use straight or cross. Okay. So he'll use inside or outside, and each of inside or outside, there's 3 foot positions. Split, inside or outside, double inside, double outside, or split, right? Now that's taking saddle, cross ashi, 50-50, ashi, outside ashi, and the reap, and breaking it down into 2 sets of 3 foot positions. Right, which is very similar to Danaher's like 6+1 with the straight and cross and the 3 foot positions, right? So very, very similar. The difference is that one, Kopfer doesn't address Ushiro Ashi, so there's no like +1, right? So it kind of leaves that out. And 2, the language, right? So inside and outside is problematic because when the leg is straight or cross, right, inside or outside, but there's also foot positions that could be inside or outside. So your language can get crossed up when you're teaching a student. So I mean, in my opinion, Danaher must have come across this and must have just made it better, made it clear. If I use inside and outside to describe the leg, it's going to be hard to use that to also describe the feet. So I'm going to use straight and cross, and then I'll talk about the feet as inside or outside. And when you clarify things like that, people can learn 90% of leg lock based positions in a class.
Yeah, I feel that way because like if you can explain the knee, sometimes the foot will come after. Like sometimes when you pummel your knees in, your feet will follow. Like if you're showing like, there's a good example that comes to my mind. Like when you're showing like you're escaping the back, and then the guy when he's mounting you, like I don't know, you want to elevate him and get into his legs. Let's say, all right. Like if you pummel your knees in first, your feet will go in after. People will ask like, wait, what do I do with my foot? But the way he would show it with the knees in and then with the feet. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think that the straight, like the straight and cross is that's the main thing. Like, is that like on your one side or on your other side? And like from there, you can go to assessing the next step more easily. Mm-hmm. You know.
Oh, by the way, I said escaping the back. I'm saying when you're preventing, like if you're in turtle, for example.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, like a foot first or a knee first entry. Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, these are good. You can do that from like also like say De La Riva if you're trying to enter legs from there. K-guard is basically mostly what it is. You're getting your knee in first. So
I got a question for you because I've been watching some of your tape and so I've noticed like sometimes from a sit-up guard. So let's say I'm up and I'm grabbing your leg with my outside arm, right? Yeah. And I'll notice you playing your bottom leg a lot of the time on Buddy's far leg, which I've seen, again, that's super popular in the gi, right? You sit up guard and you have your bottom leg pushing their far leg away. But I noticed that, like, I noticed a couple of things. Like one time I saw you there in that position and your foot slipped to the inside and I saw you underhook the leg and go X guard on the other side. And then the other time your foot slipped over the hip. So you scoop gripped the far leg and went to K guard on the far side. And I thought that was like a super, super interesting like set of transitions from there. So like when you're playing sit up,
people that are doing that.
Yeah, I noticed that watching film lately.
There's a lot of people doing that, like the lean back, and as they're driving into you, take your foot out and you put it on the hip, and you put like a shallow. You put it shallow. You know what I mean? If you rewatch my match with Lachlan, he does that, but I time it so as he's putting it, I'll boom, put it right away. That's why like people were saying, oh, he didn't play any of the K guard. He didn't see like, well, to be honest, he was trying to set it up, but I was trying. I'll just sit back like right away. The one time he locked his hands, that was the issue. When he locked his hands around my knee, I was like, okay, I gotta give him outside ashi, pummel, separate. But when you do it, there's obviously risk. You're giving inside position to the guy on top. You know what I mean? But if you're comfortable leg pummeling, then what's it called? If you're comfortable leg pummeling, then it shouldn't be really an issue, especially if you're expecting it. Actually, I was watching Lachlan's breakdown versus Gordon, and then he was going over like, oh, I put my foot on the outside, I bait him. When he goes for it, it exposes his heel. So it's a pretty common strategy with leg locks. You know, when you're like to bait somebody, give him your foot, he goes for it, it exposes his heel. That's it's been around, you know what I mean? It's just I don't know if people break it down as often.
If somebody's trying to set up K guard on you, what's your go-to response to that?
Mm-hmm. Well, first thing is stay low, stay heavy, you know, try to really get them to go after it, because you got to give them the first reaction is to try to defend it. Because if they're trying to get half fast and you're kind of showing it to them, they're not going to go for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. From there, I like to force the outside ashi. That's a good one. If he manages to get that bend in the hip and turn me, if I stay on my hands and I try to resist it, that's when he's going to catch my heel. If I roll through, heel slip, then I have a much better chance of escaping. The other thing that's good about what Lachlan does is that when he rolls, he's rolling, and then you land with him in the 80-20. So he lands with the knee down, and then your knee's up already, and then his foot's already in your hip. So it's good, but there are ways that to defend it. Definitely, there are some things that, you know, what's it called? Played around with it with Craig a lot. Played around with it with Jason a lot. There are a lot of cool things you can do to counter and to put him in the 80-20 afterwards. We'll have to obviously have some mats to show it, but there's it's definitely something that I haven't been what's his name? I think it's new. You know what I mean? It's some ways of entering that people didn't go as deep into before. So I think it's pretty new. People should catch on to that. But it's not like the leg lock is starting from scratch and everything's brand new. It's one position.
Yeah,
just a different.
It's just backside 50
with one new variation. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of room to play with it and to add it to whatever you had. But you know, the leg locks will still like the big picture is kind of already there. You know what I mean?
What do you guys think? Because like I saw Lachlan made a post the other day about, and I mean, I think it's pretty obvious how much of the meows were, how much of their entrances that he was kind of reinventing. I mean, you see them play a ton of K and a ton of calf slicer, right?
But
the backside 50-50 is funny because like that, I didn't know what it was, to be completely honest, but I recognized it immediately as Ryan Hall. Like when I saw Lachlan do it, I was like, I've seen Ryan Hall do this in the UFC a bunch of times.
Yeah. It's been around, man. Actually, what's it called? Jason plays a lot with that, man. I train with Jason Rao, back. Purple. That's around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's obviously done something to make it. He's tweaked it a bit. Lachlan made it look a little bit nicer for sure.
No, for sure. And you had the effectiveness you had at ADCC, obviously by like finishing those three big guys and getting bronze. Obviously, it was like the perfect way to show like how he perfected it. But like you said, Corey, same. I was thinking a lot of Ryan Hall from that. You know, Ryan has been playing with 50-50, and he actually has like really good entries from there. Like I've rolled quite a bit like recently with him, like before that whole thing went down, and he does have like some nice entry that resemble. I just think like maybe he's not like, as I was saying, he's not like MMA is his game now, so he's not taking as much time, but he brings that to MMA and he can like finish so many guys with it. So dangerous.
Let me tell you what it is. The difference between Ryan Hall and Lachlan is Ryan will set it up a lot from standing position, or at least from guard. He'll sit up and dive into it. Like how the 2-on-1, you know, you shoot and then boom, right away, you misdirect him. The beauty about what Lachlan's doing is that he's freeing his knee. I mean, he's hiding his knee. So when he brings his knee down and he switches to the other leg, when you start to lose that knee line, that's where he grabs it. That's where he's doing that backside 50-50 entry. The only difference is you're already in guard and you're already leg entangled. So he's figured out a way to switch from one leg to another, right? And incorporating that backside 50-50 with all that mix, which is really good. Don't get me wrong. That's awesome. I've been playing, we actually drilled, what's it called? I've been playing around with it a lot, man. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Like I'm all about it. It's so good. And then when you drill it and you start to see the counter to it, you start to see that position in a lot of places. You know what I mean? Yeah. You end up in kind of like an X guard with like a false, like an X with the foot on the other side, ready to do that backside 50-50. And you know who else plays a lot with that? They played a lot with that in the gi. If you watch Levi takes the back like that. But instead of switching to the leg, he'll grab the pen and invert underneath you and take the back. If you rewatch his matches, I forget against who. He was at Pan Am's last year. One of his matches, he hits a back take so pretty, and it's the same position. You're in X guard, you're on the floor already. And then instead of inverting and spinning on that leg, you're just spinning and taking the back instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listen, to the listeners that are a bit confused, all you have to do is watch Levi's match at Pan Am's. I'll find it and I'll just mention it when we actually post the podcast. And rewatch Lachlan's breakdown is on Flow Grappling for free. You guys can go rewatch it. And you can see it step by step. He breaks down every detail. Literally every detail is in there. He's not holding anything back. So no, yeah, dude, definitely. It kind of ties up what you were saying. Like Lachlan saw it, somebody doing it, took it, made it better. You know what I mean? The more we have access to all this information, these matches, the further the sport's gonna go. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, look at the jump in the last couple of years. It's fucking crazy. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, it just shows like how like new the sport still is, because you know, like it's that kind of shit doesn't happen as much like in wrestling or in judo, because it's a lot of like the sport is older. It's been like at the highest level for such a long time. But like jiu-jitsu, there's still a lot of innovation going through, and you see that like if you watch ADCC in the past like 15, 16 years, like just every like half of when he came, he had a new game like for something. He was doing something more like different than others, and then like with Gordon now and like Lackland, and every 2 years you see something different. Now there's a lot more like wrestling from bottom too. Like you could his name Dante Leon, like on how he took Lepri's back, right? He came up off a single from bottom. So that kind of shit you used to not see it as much before. So
No.
it's always evolving. So people have to catch up.
It's funny because I remember I got asked what I thought the next meta, like at the next ADCC, what are we going to see? Because you saw 4 years ago, leg locks were super dominant, right? And then this year, back takes were the biggest score and the biggest way to finish fights. But that's not an actual trend. That's the lack of a trend. So in jiu-jitsu, because back is the superlative position, when there isn't a giant asymmetry in the meta of the sport, you will see back takes be the number one thing all the time. And we'll go back to that all the time, you know? Yeah. But I think in the next ADCC, you're going to see wrestling from guard, because that's the area where we can technically improve wrestling. You can't make wrestling better. You can't improve wrestling. That's retarded. But you can improve wrestling from guard. You can improve wrestling against submissions. But honestly, people have been doing that. You guys know Sam McAley, or I forget how to say his name. He's a guy from New York. He shared a video of, I forget the dude's name, but he's single legging to reap ankle locking Ricardo Almeida in 2003 at ADCC. And you're seeing a guy now use his collegiate wrestling combined with his leg lock game to win a match. Like, it's funny because we think of this as entirely new, but really it's like people should have saw that then and been like, this guy shouldn't beat Ricardo Almeida. You know, he's using skills from outside our sport. That's super meta, and we should be copying that. We're only starting to. It took a long time for that realization to.
Yeah, and like you said, like when you say like you can't improve wrestling, that's true. But the thing is, you can improve wrestling for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is like wrestling from guard. That's a big example. Because the rule set is so different than wrestling, the way you wrestle has to be different too. Yeah.
Well, look at the meows. So Paulo lost in the semifinals in 2017, where he got a point for pulling guard.
Yeah.
Right.
Against Cobrinha? Against Cobrinha.
Yeah, exactly. In the semifinals, he lost that.
Against Cobrinha, he lost the negative. Actually, if you guys watch that match, and if you watch the match versus Nikki, you'll see a lot of K-guard, passing the foot, false X. Dude, he entered Cobrinha twice with a false X by hitting a K-guard, passing the foot to the other side, false X.
And then loses by on a guard pull negative. Like,
yeah.
And then this year at ADCC, or last year, Paulo comes in and he's shooting doubles to turtle to pull, because he knew that if he shot the double, failed on the double, but stayed in turtle for 2 seconds and pulled, he wouldn't get penalized. That's the future, man. Like, learning how we can combine these things. I thought that was super clever. Super.
Yeah, we're seeing also a lot of also like people mixing up jiu-jitsu and wrestling, you know, like making your wrestling work for a BJJ. Like Dante will come up, get the back, throw the hooks even on the feet. Like these things are, it's just like we're just our own kind of style. You know what I mean? Because I'll watch like, I remember at the Miami camp, I'll watch like wrestlers go with jiu-jitsu guys, and the wrestlers are struggling with the jiu-jitsu guys, not because we're so much better. It's just different. It's just awkward. Like guys standing up straight, and all of a sudden, like they don't care about giving their leg and shit like that. It's fucks with people.
You're not going to shoot the same way you shoot in wrestling, where the cost of a shot is maybe a moment on defense. You know, like
exactly like it's submission. That's the thing. Like you said, different. Like you shoot, but let's say you shoot like mindlessly, just like you fake you shoot, but the guy's expecting it and he doesn't care, but he grabs your neck or grabs a kimura. Then that's another game. You know, like someone who showed like he can use his wrestling in a good way for jiu-jitsu is like Nicky Rudd. Like that's a good example. Amazing. Like his wrestling is not the highest level you can find, but he's so explosive, and he knows how to like get around, like sweep single, go around the back, and always chase the back off of it and use it. So that's a good example too.
Well, think about, like, it's crazy. For all these years, like, wrestlers have been coming into jiu-jitsu schools and people have been going, all right, let's work on what you don't know. You're gonna play guard for the next 2 fucking years. And that's retarded, because this guy is a prepared grappler. He's a grappler. He will learn that over time, but why not make him capable of grappling right now? When you shoot a double, people turn.
Yeah, or like
TJ guy had to use a body lock to take the back, and you've just, like, within a year, you've made him so good at something that he can use against guys who are elite.
Yeah, and I think Nicky Rod's a good example, because like he's not trying to like sit and like play something he's not comfortable yet with. He's still drilling it and trying to get better at it. But when he goes like from bottom position, he shoots and he turns around right away to like try to expose that back and force you to like give up something basically. And then he's, like you said, body lock, or he tries to get the leg side to side until there's a back that appears, and then he's really good at getting that back.
Yeah, well, like, okay, this is what I'm talking about when I say you can't improve on wrestling. I think you're correct too. Like, you can totally improve on wrestling in the context of jiu-jitsu. And obviously the strongest way you can do that is learning to wrestle up from your guard. You have to stand up too, but it's just, that's the area where there is no wrestling. Wrestlers don't teach shooting from their butt. So that can be developed into something entirely new, right? But connecting wrestling to the back too. I mean, like, for me, that's the most natural connection, because wrestlers already try to get to the back. Like a good wrestling coach, like Gia, you guys have all worked with him. He'll tell you, like, if somebody shows the back, you take it automatically. That's where you go. Everything he has to do has to be to hide that from you. So now you've got jiu-jitsu guys who get shot on and immediately start to turn. And I mean, wrestlers do that from the ground. They'll show their back on the ground. We won't, right? Like, we'll turn our back to the ground most of the time.
Yeah.
But when somebody shoots on you and you start to fall, you often think, oh, I could turn and roll, you know? But if that wrestler knows how to trap and track that roll, like,
you're fucked.
Like Nicky, you're fucked. And that's exactly what he does to everybody. They comfortably let him get the body lock, I think, too often. They're like, oh, I'm good. Like, not that they're letting him, but they're not sufficiently panicked, you know? Like, and they do a nice little roll. Like, you saw it with I think Kanan, Duarte, where he, like, you'd see him roll out as, like, a little bit as if like he wasn't fully understanding how good Nicky was at tracking it. You know?
Yeah.
So
he does a good knee cut too, Nicky. He sets up like back exposure off the knee cut a lot, man. Yeah. Like he'll time it, boom, cut like 5 feet away from you, come back,
you're gonna turn.
force you to turtle. Yeah,
exactly. It's super smart.
Because when he knee cuts, he's not actually thinking about passing your guard. He's thinking about going north-south right away. He's thinking that step over, like where he knows he can get a front headlock and then a back exposure, as opposed to like
sometimes he doesn't even put an underhook on when he goes for that
exactly.
Knee cut. Sometimes
so he forces
just cut it with like a collar tie.
Yeah, well, you know, if you like Rafa Mendez, this is pretty classic Rafa. Like, Rafa likes that underhook, obviously, but when he can't get it, he'll often just use a tight elbow. He'll fire a knee slice and top spin right off the knee slice. So it's just a power knee slice immediately into a top spin. And yeah, no, I think Nicky's fucking incredible. And I think, to be honest, like, people get, like we talked about this with Gordon, people mix up your personality on social media with your ability on the mat or whatever. Like, people are putting out whatever personality they want to make their career, to make money. It has nothing to do with me, and I don't give a shit. Nicky is showing us a lot of the future of grappling, period. That's not something people can argue. If you really understand what he's doing, you know that there's going to be a huge influx of NCAA wrestlers as this sport hopefully continues to move how it was moving before the pandemic, becoming a super fight sport with a lot of cash involved. What do you think those guys are going to do who don't want to get hit in the head? They're going to come to this, and they're going to be good. They're going to be fucking hard to deal with.
That would be great, to be honest. I would love it. It would change the sport in a great way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the sport was doing good up until, like, obviously the pandemic. And there's another thing that we kind of forgot about because of the pandemic, is the fact that these promoters are putting on these fucking cards. They can't pay half the athletes, and then we're ending up fucking competing for free. That's something I would like to friendly remind everybody that happened. So when you're going to put on a card, budget shit, good boy.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do it has been like, I mean, I'm not a promoter, but from what I'm seeing, because don't take advice from me, but like if you're trying to get all the big names on one card, you're gonna fuck up. It seems, unless you have unlimited like money.
100%.
But like guys like Seth Daniels with Fight to Win, he's been putting a couple of big names, and the rest are locals because you guys know how it works, right? So that's smart, and he's been around for almost like what 200 shows, maybe. Yep. Like I don't know, like that's a lot.
He has a sustainable business model, and he's the only one with a sustainable business model.
Exactly. He's the one making a bit of money, and he says it all the time. I'm not making bank with these shows because it cost me so much, but he's consistent, so he has money over time. All those guys are trying to put the biggest fucking show, but they end up like not paying their athletes. They can fuck right off. That's for sure. We've seen that before. So maybe that's one good thing from the pandemic right now, because these guys, they can't fucking do business right now.
Yeah, but I think that the hard part is that a lot of these guys have fucking money, whereas Seth is a grassroots operation. So like these type of things can shut down the good guys and just leave room for the assholes when we come back. I hope that's not what happens. I really do, because Seth is a lunatic. He's the best dude in promoting right now.
I think it's a danger for every business actually now. You think about it, like the startups, the people who start their business by bootstrapping, that's gonna be the people in danger.
Anyone in business right now is fucked. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but my point is that if you rich burn, right, you're gonna be all right. Like if you're sorry.
Most probably.
Most probably. And you know how to handle your money probably. Whereas like if you're Seth, you're running on maybe 40K. You know what I mean? You're running a multi-million-dollar operation on maybe 40K in the bank or 50K. I don't know. This is completely conjecture, but my point is that it's totally plausible that his hard work is running this huge organization that costs millions of dollars, but there's not actually that much money to pull out of the bank.
Yeah, the cash flow is not.
I don't think they do. Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu, the event don't make that much money. It's more, here's what it is. Like when you have a big show, it gives you that credibility you need. You know, you're doing a service, you're giving back to people. So it's more a fulfilling thing than just trying to make money. You know what I mean? And that's why, you know, promoters initially, what they're trying to do, they have good intentions, but they get maybe fired up, or they're trying to compete with another promotion, and they don't really take into consideration the fact that, you know, athletes want to get paid.
I feel like what you said, Taz, is like there's like promoters that actually care about the sport, and they try to do it on a long consistent run, like set that it, because he's been doing it for so long, right? But then you have guys like they get out of nowhere. They're like, we have a lot of money, a lot of investor. We're going to put on that big show, and they think they're going to fucking make bank with it. And then they end up obviously not paying the athletes, and they just fuck right off. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, like listen, this is never going to be like, I'm sorry, maybe I'm wrong. Okay. This is never going to be the NHL. And I don't think that should be the goal. I don't even understand. That's the goal of people who are trying to get rich, not people trying to make a living doing something they love. They're trying to get rich off of other people's effort. So cool. Fuck them. Like this sport is going to be one like where people who do it, and that group can grow to be a really big number. People who do it are going to watch it, and their friends and their families are going to watch them compete. And that's still a lot of people, and that's more than enough money for a lot of people to make a living. The problem is when you try to make it what it isn't, you can't spend $1 million putting on a show that's going to make $200,000. You just can't do that. No, and it's never going to make a million. You know, in my opinion.
I think you're right. Like showing the difference. Like, no, it's not NFL. It's not NHL. It's not like sports are like extremely mainstream. I don't think it will ever be that mainstream. It can be more over time with more practitioner, like you said, and like family and friends that are aware. Good example is like my parents, when I started, like they were like they started watching the comp when I was like, there was streaming. And at first they didn't understand shit, but now they start to understand the sport like slowly, and they don't miss it usually if it's streamed. So, well, guess what? These people are watching now. And so it's two more person that are watching just because I'm involved in the sport. Otherwise, they wouldn't give a fucking damn about it.
It's going to grow slowly, but it's going to grow for sure. You know what I mean?
No, it's going to grow, but I'm not sure, like, the whole argument about Jiu-Jitsu being an Olympic sport as well, it kind of fits into this. Me personally, I don't see it getting there. Even with all the money that I put into this direction, it's hard to, like, first of all, there are sports similar to Jiu-Jitsu already in the Olympics, and secondly, it's a complicated sport that takes a geek to really appreciate. So it's not like a really easy to understand mass.
You know what the most corrupt organization in the world is?
Probably the Olympic Committee.
Fucking Olympic. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have anything to do with the Olympics.
Plus, they changed the sport like so much. Like judo changed so much because of the Olympics.
You can't do a fucking double leg. You can't do a single leg. This is absurd. You know,
it's always like extremely political. So, like in my opinion, jiu-jitsu in the Olympics should be like. Personally, I don't want it, but if it's a talk, it should be like one of the latest, like later in the future of the sport. And now we have other things to do with it.
Yeah, and even if it did get added, it would be gi jiu-jitsu, not what we do, which is so. I mean,
it would suck.
Yeah.
Oh God!
And then, how about this? When you go Olympics, right? There's all these weird rules about whether you're pro or amateur. I don't know if those. I know some of. I don't know if they now what they are anymore, because they used to be that all Olympic athletes were amateurs, right? So you couldn't compete professionally and be an Olympic.
They change it from time to time. That's the thing.
They change it from time to time. So I don't even know what that would mean for us. You know what I mean? Do you really want to give some big faceless organization control over your sport?
Nah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not down.
Okay.
What's the name? They tried to get wrestling out of the Olympics at some point, didn't they?
They took it off the permanent sports list. Yes.
Wow.
It's like,
and they have stupid
like
shit like fucking
curling.
Like the oldest fucking sport.
It's the Olympics are like based on wrestling and track and field. It's absurd to think about.
That's wild, man. I can't believe
Plus, it's like because they're like, oh, it's not viewer friendly. What do you mean? Like it's always like it's really packed, and like wrestling in the U.S. like it's huge, man. It's like it's really big in some countries. Some other maybe a bit less, but it's still like a great sport to watch. But I don't know. They're trying, like they want to put probably like chess instead of fucking wrestling. You know,
it's the problem is that the Olympics are super political, right? Like initially the Olympics are started as a way to prevent war, right? So we go and we compete in sports so that we don't kill each other. And then, I mean, I'm not talking about the Greeks. I don't actually know anything about that. I'm talking about the modern Olympics, by the way, right? This is like all part of international relations. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happens is it becomes like insanely politicized, because it becomes a way of showing that your nation is superior to other nations. Right. And then what happens is you have a real interest in which sports are there, because you don't want a sport that your nation has a disadvantage in to be big when, you know, blah, 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 blah. So
then you start
the Olympics
juicing.
it's a big circle jerk. It's retarded. And I love watching the Olympics. I know I'm contradicting myself. My point is that that there's just two sides to it. You know what I mean? There's the part that we all get together, we play sports and it's wonderful. And then there's the political side, which is always nonsense.
Is the Olympics a non-profit organization?
I would assume it would have to be, but I don't know.
Because FIFA, be really weird. You know FIFA, right?
Yeah.
FIFA soccer is I believe the World Cup, or like just the FIFA in general, is a non-profit, but they make some real cash, man.
Yeah,
dude,
there's a bunch of people making money.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, the countries that actually they host the Olympics, these are the losers usually, because they invest so much money for the hype, and this never comes back. Like all the structures built for the Olympics in every country, they never get their money back from those structures.
We're still fixing the big O.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good example.
So they say it's the committees and the International Olympic Committee are supposed to be strictly non-profit. However, the games themselves can be profitable for the whole city, obviously. But
which they aren't.
I don't know if it depends where. Maybe in Japan it will be, but like besides the Japanese are just like.
I don't think we're having an Olympics, are we?
No, not this year, but next year. Like probably, I think they said it would start next year.
I mean, if anyone's going to be efficient with it, it'll be them. But.
That's why I was saying that. I think like they're not like the Brazilian, obviously, for efficiency, because we've seen in Rio, like in 2016, it was like fucking the worst.
They were shooting homeless people. That's not a conspiracy. I mean, when I say that, I don't mean that the state was ordering you to shoot homeless people. I mean that there was people in charge of removing people from areas, and some of them ended up just killing people, which is insane.
That's very similar to what they had in 1980 in Soviets as well. Like they had a decree to get rid of all homeless people and all crime and put them like there's a certain number of kilometers away from the capital that they moved everybody. You know.
That's insane. And imagine like in Brazil, it was in Rio. Like there's a lot of people that are like in poor condition. Like,
dude, when they did the World Cup in Rio, dude, you know, there's a place called Manaus in Brazil. It's like the forest, basically. They somehow found a way to build a stadium there. And they dragged the equipment on a boat, in like a small boat, like through the river and water, just so they can have like a couple of games, man. Wow.
Show off, yeah.
Yeah, and then what's it called? You know who's one of the main sponsors of the FIFA is Budweiser. Can you imagine? Non-profit selling beer in stadiums. Whoa, Budweiser, man.
Oh man,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why jiu-jitsu should be more popular than that, man. Because I mean, we haven't reached that stage yet, but we don't have as much BS as like other mainstream sports. You know what I mean?
No, and like you don't want it. My point is that like you kind of want. It's the same as like in life. I think like you start owning too many things, man, and that's like a problem for you. Like. Jiu-jitsu, do we want it to grow? Yeah, but we want it to grow to a point where people who invest their time in it can make a career. But what does a career mean? Does a career mean a fucking $2 million house? Because maybe you have to sacrifice a lot about the sport to get to that point. And I think it's great. It's great point, right now. I love it. Like,
dude, to give you a bit of context, like you know, like for example, in Lebanon, we don't have like soccer players. It's not like a big athletic country or anything. You know, like what they do, like they support soccer, some people, because depending on the team's uniform, their color, it represents a certain political party. And then people will get behind that team. Like red is a certain political party, blue is a certain political party, certain religion even. Dude, I'm telling you, it's wild. Like, and you have people supporting that sport for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? Whereas people that are into jiu-jitsu and watch it, they actually do it, like it, appreciate it. You know, like live, breathe, eat jiu-jitsu. So at least our fan base is more loyal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like you need to have a sense of community, like when you're involved in jiu-jitsu, because it's definitely not like we said, soccer is pretty easy to understand when you see it. You know, you don't need to be playing the sport to understand it. As opposed to jiu-jitsu, you need to almost be doing the sport. So that sense of community, like I hope stays like throughout, like when it starts getting bigger.
But it can, like, look at sports like sports games like chess, right? Chess has big international championships. They have all kinds of shit going on that we don't know about because we're not interested, because we don't play. And that's kind of like, that would be the coolest thing for jiu-jitsu, is just to keep developing into a really strong sport that it, like, if you don't like it, I hope you don't even know about it. You know?
How long has jiu-jitsu been around to start with? How long?
Jiu-jitsu? Like
Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like our sport, what we're doing.
Early 20th century.
Hey, dude, that's pretty young. What about soccer? Do you know soccer when they started playing soccer?
Yeah, okay, so I think that the British claim that they invented soccer. But
it's the British.
But I don't know. It would have been a few hundred years for sure.
I don't know the years, but I remember this. The way soccer started is they used to behead people like prisoners, like in public, and then they kick the head around. No, I'm dead serious. They kick the head around, and then they found something to kick around like it's somebody's head, I think. So it has to go back to these times. So it's a lot older. You know what I mean?
Don't take it from us, please. Check your facts.
Somebody free, like just boom, catch the head, boom, pass it to somebody, boom, head.
Dude, a fucking skull must be pretty hard to catch on your chest, you know?
Yeah, you gotta have that technique, you know, just boom, soft touch.
But like you said, it's easy, right? You're kicking a ball, and not that the sport's easy, but to understand the sport is easy. To understand that they're trying to get a ball in a net. So you're very easily using it as a tool to get all kinds of people watching and to distract them or entertain them, depending on your perspective. And jiu-jitsu, I don't know that jiu-jitsu is ever going to be that. I don't know that I want it to be.
I don't think so. I mean, like we said, I think it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to. Like, yeah, it doesn't have to.
And anyway, I feel like the way the sport is designed, it's not like you look at it and you understand exactly what's going on. Like we said, it's not viewer friendly. It's not. It's
esoteric. If you don't understand it, you don't understand it.
That's why, like most people, they watch a match and they're like, why are they not doing anything? They're like, they're actually doing something, but they cannot know just from watching because they never felt it.
You don't know the don't know, rude boy. If you don't know it, you don't know it. That's it.
So wait, I have a question. I have a question for you guys, going back sort of to what we were talking about, like the wrestling and the meta. So let's get some controversy here. What do you think about Keenan's opinion that no-gi jiu-jitsu is imploding?
What do you mean imploding?
He clarified it in a way that gi jiu-jitsu has more techniques, so it's more technical. That's his point. So in nogi, I hope I'm not wrong. Yeah,
like he means that the sport is going this way in terms of the volume techniques used, and that mostly when people go in there, they're just going to wrestle or attack the legs.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know, but I think Keenan's main main idea behind what he's saying, he's just trying to sell more lapel worm guard DVDs, man. Because we got the point. You made it up. There's a bunch of cool worm guard shit you can do, but same thing with the legs, brother. You can do a bunch of things with the legs that he doesn't even know about, But I'm not saying that gi jiu-jitsu is imploding and that we barely see any professional events going down and whatnot. No. I just don't know enough to tell you, but I know he's got a bunch of cool things that he does with the lapel, and then he weaves it around the leg and whatnot. But I wouldn't say man. I think it's just different. You know what I mean? It's different. Yeah.
I think on my part, like I'm a bit with Taz on this one. Like I feel like, of course, like with the jacket, like with the gi, there's more chokes, there's more like attacks, and like maybe different technique, like the worm guard. Obviously there's like 100 fucking configuration, and for sure there's going to be more like subtle arrangement when you grapple with it. But here's the thing, it's like in no-gi, it revolves around like maybe a lot of like transition and more like open space that you need to close and run around. But you see every year like new stuff coming out, and I feel it's just like just the principle of wedges. Let's say an example, you explain the principle of wedges to someone, you can't really see it and take it like a gi, but you can explain it by like blocking something, and it can be as technical in my opinion and as complicated if you want it to be. And the proof is the sport is changing like we said, every ADCC you see new trend, new stuff, and like people doing stuff just like a bit different. And so in my opinion, I think it doesn't revolve just around wrestling and leg locks. Like otherwise we wouldn't have like as many finishes from the back and shit like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. Statistically, Keenan's wrong. So I looked into it. So there's no question. There's no question.
His main teammate Hinger has literally one move, that guillotine. Literally. What are you talking about?
And here's the thing. You still see back attacks. You still see all the volume of attacks. Leg locks were momentarily super popular because people couldn't defend them. And now it seems that they're more just working their way into the overall meta. And I find there's two things that I find weird. You're going to add leg locks and wrestling with the understanding that the rest of jiu-jitsu still exists, even if some things are done a little less often, right? And you're going to call that imploding, but you're literally combining another entire sport. So you're going to take an entire sport of wrestling to the entire sport of jiu-jitsu. Like that's not imploding, that's exploding. That's literally the opposite. Right?
Besides, here's one thing. Let me add on to what you just said. Like if it's imploding, I mean, I don't think it's imploding. It's just a matter of maybe we're simplifying it. We're making it easier for people to understand and to kind of understand. Like, because if you're doing legs, you're elevating. If you're wrestling, you're moving forward. Maybe that's a way to like simplify it for somebody. You know what I mean?
I do. That's how I see it in my head.
Exactly. Like, and take boxing for example. You have what 7, 8 kind of different punches. Does that mean that Yeah, whatever. You tell me.
Times two sides, but you really only have a jab, a hook, and an uppercut, and then you can add angles, or you could do it on the far side than your side, but
you just do it differently. You combine them differently. It doesn't. You don't need a million different variations to call it more technical. I don't think that's.
I think both. Yeah, I think both sports are actually exploding, like gi and no gi. I think they're both like you're seeing changes in like in the gi and in no gi. Like that's my opinion.
And it's not just, and we're not saying we're progressing because we're inventing new techniques. No, we're just linking them up together. We're doing them better. We're fine tuning. We're sharpening. But it doesn't mean that it's imploding. So my answer is absolutely not. He's shot.
And I think you touched on something really cool there when you said, like, when you use the term technical, like is more technical more volume? I mean, there's something to that having more things to do makes you think more, sure. But like, is that it? It's just like, if there's more things to do, you're more technical. But what if you're doing more things less well? So here's my general example. Everything in the gi can be done less well because of a lapel. What I mean by that is that I can use more force on a grip unless there's a counter grip killing that, right? But like, my grip doesn't have to be perfect to work because I have a fucking grip. It's strong. Like, if I grab you with a collar tie and that collar tie isn't placed on the end of your spine, it's not going to work. So offense in no gi tends to have, I find there's more of a need to be perfect. Or the moves just won't work. There's no friction. Things are slippery. Now, defensively, that's totally the opposite.
Yeah.
Like I fucking just fish out of stuff and no gi.
Here's a counter to what he's saying also. It's like me going up. By the way, I don't believe what I'm about to say, but I'm giving you an example. It's like me saying, if you're competing in the gi IBJJF rules, that rule set is imploding. Like, not because you can't reap or heel hook, that you can't keep progressing and getting better in certain aspects and progressing.
You're saying there can be a reduction in one area, but an increase in another that outweighs that.
100%.
Yeah, I think I think the best way to put it was like, you can have like a limited set of technique, but if you're creative in the way you apply them, it makes a whole game, you know? So you don't need to like know all the fucking technique in the world but not being able to apply them. It's the way you do and then you start adding stuff to your arsenal, like some weapons here and there, and then you put them together. A good example is like Gary. Like, you see any Gary matches, like most of his techniques we know of or we've seen, but the way he links them up makes it like so exciting first and like so good. So I think that's it's like boxing, like you were saying.
I think training the most in the gi out of all of us, I can as well attest to this. Like, I wouldn't say that having more options makes the sport more technical. It's like the precision and how technical you are with the tools you have, that makes a difference. So I wouldn't say that there is a huge difference. Like, especially on the highest level, I think everything can be refined to technical perfection. You know.
Of course. Absolutely. And that's the beauty of martial art. You could do the most mundane thing, but there's better ways to do it. And the more you do it, you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And like, I was listening to John's episode on the John Danaher, our coach in New York, on the Joe Rogan Experience. And he was saying, like, what he tried to do is basically get his first guys, Eddie, Gary, to be really good in a place where people haven't really spent much time. So I'm not saying he limited them. He just made them really good at a certain area, and they were able to beat guys with way more experience than them. 10, 15, 20 years of training. These guys come in with 3-4 years of leg hocking, and they're wrecking everybody. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily a bad thing to focus on a certain set of techniques. On the contrary, it could help you stand out and specialize. And bottom line is, what you're doing, you're just helping the sport like move forward, because that area of the sport now is so much better, and you've put eyes on it. Now people want to learn it, and now guess what? People that are casuals want to just train jiu-jitsu. They can do gi, they can do no gi, they can do this, that, but they're going to have better resources because somebody has spent time there trying to make it better. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. And, you know, like, that leads me to like something where in this sport, we talk a lot about the individuals and the they do. and that's not a bad thing. It's fine. It's good to give people credit for their work. Where I come, like I did a lot of like skateboarding and snowboarding as a kid. And in those sports, you hear a lot of talk about the progression. And when you hear the progression, they're not talking about a person. They're talking about the sport, period. Like the sport has its own progression and we're all contributing to it. And like, I like that because it's like, it's the fucking truth is jiu-jitsu's this vast theoretical and practical skill set. And we're all doing what we can to understand it. At the same time, we're all like it's like a science problem that everybody's trying to figure out at the same time. You know, we compete as a way of figuring it out, but the goal isn't to compete. The goal is to figure it out.
Yeah,
kind of to sidetrack this.
The way to look at it, though.
I know you guys like you compete and you focus on no-gi jiu-jitsu, and without putting like this cheesy debate on gi versus no-gi. Like down the road, let's say like you quit competition, okay, and you just want to study. Do you think you're gonna like try to do both, or are you gonna stick with no-gi for the rest of your life?
That's a good question. Personally, we've trained in Nagi a bunch. I'll speak for me and then you guys can answer. But for me now, I think also because obviously I got to survive, I got to make some money. I think for me now, the best would be obviously to get some time in Nagi. I study gi matches, by the way, all the time. I think there's a lot of things that you can see happening in Nagi. You can do them in no gi, but go for a different. I gave an example just 40 minutes ago with that, X guard on the ground. Levi does one thing, Lachlan does another. There's another style of passing, like you'll see Reinhold do it in Nogi. Murgali will do the same thing, giving the single leg X, and then you can threaten it back or you can kind of pass off of it straight to mount. But I think I'll go for it later once like I've competed and like kind of gave my best shot into one specific thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's a question actually. Like when you're done competing, like the professional part is over. It's just for you.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'll do both because both of them are fun. I like both. I think both are pretty cool to do.
Yeah, although for myself, although I haven't like trained in the gi in a while, like really a long time, like over a year now. I feel my answer is pretty much like Taza. I actually enjoyed it a lot when I was doing it. Like I was doing it like 2 or 3 times a week, just for the fun of it. And every time I would do it, I would like still enjoy it a bit, and because I could set up a different game than what I'm used to, like on my everyday, So for sure, like I'll have a lot of like once I put it back on, I'll have a lot of things to learn. But that's the fun part, in my opinion. If like let's say, as a purple or brown belt or black belt, I put my gi back on and I'm not like up to date, instead of being scared and being like, all right, I'm never putting it back again, but I want to enjoy it. I can learn a lot of stuff. And because I have a good grappling experience already, I think it can like be like, I can learn it faster. So after the competitive part, I think I'll go back to it too.
So for me, like I make most of my decisions about fun, and then all the science stuff comes to support that, So like I'm doing right now what I find fun, and if I at any point it's not like competition wouldn't even be a factor, is my point. Like, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I'm saying for me and my decision making, if I think I'll have fun doing it, I'm just going to start doing it. And right now, I just did the times I've done it a lot, I haven't had as much fun. I could see myself probably doing more judo because I have fun when I do it. And so, like for me, like if it's enjoyable, I'm gonna do it. I know that's maybe not.
That's actually a good answer. I mean, if you let's say I put on the gi like in 5 years, okay. Let's say I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do more gi now, and I want to teach a gi or whatever, and I actually don't enjoy it. I'm just not gonna do it. So I think that's the biggest fucking factor. Like at the end of the day, if you really don't enjoy it, then just don't do it.
But I could, like, what's crazy is that I know that I could start to want to enjoy it. Like, here's the thing, like sometimes what you're doing, like once you start to feel like when I start to feel in no gi that like maybe my progression is slowing down, and having gotten good at that and done it so much, like maybe I'll want to feel a faster rate of progression. So I'll be training in a gi just because I feel like I'm getting better faster and it feels good, you know?
Yeah. Here's one thing I remember from very recent experience with Val. Like here's the thing. I'll do like round with him. He'll have me in like a reverse Delo worm that I've never seen. I spend a round there trying to defend it. Next couple of rounds, hey Val, what is that thing you're doing? Here it is. How can I defend it? Here it is. Next round, all of a sudden I'm having more fun because there's something new that I figured out. So there's also the fact that you know, like you were mentioning on one of the earlier podcasts, that figuring out something is gonna give you like that satisfaction. Yeah. And that's what you like about jiu-jitsu. Yeah, like when you're surrounded with somebody who's, you know, because Val, you put a lot of time in the gi, obviously. So you're obviously progressing faster than us in it. So now when I come to you to train, you did the hard work of figuring out, learning, and now you're giving it to me fresh. Mm-hmm. So boom. Now because you showed me that, I can enjoy it more. You know what I mean? And there's a bit of that too, you know, like once you start to figure out a bit, you know, all right, this grip here, this grip there, this difference here, it starts to become a bit more enjoyable. And I think you'll start to enjoy it once you can just adapt your game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It makes such a huge difference when you like my game, for example, if I'm playing half butterfly and I'm not like fighting the sleeves, fighting the collar, keeping distance, I'm going to get long stepped every single time. Mm-hmm. Once I figure out, all right, I need to get this sleeve here, I need to keep that distance there, I need to do this instead of that, it starts to become a little
problem solving part that makes it like actually fun. Like when you, like you said, when you solve that problem, you're like, oh, that's nice. Now I can add that to my game. It's new in the, like, you just put it in your pocket and then you can go on to something else. So for sure.
I think it's what,
at the end of the day, you got to enjoy it too.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what I picked up from you, Pure. Like some time ago, you said like you're taking a break from competition to stay open-minded and having fun, keep on evolving in the game when you're not limited, like to improving your best game. Sometimes I think like not competing in this sense having its advantages. Actually, like you can
absolutely
just focus on fun.
Like what I was telling you is basically like, and it depends on everybody. I feel like some guys like they learn better by competing maybe, but for me it can be a bit stressful, and having like lining up competition. Sometimes I always feel at the end, let's say I do, I don't know, 3 in a month and a half or every 2 weeks. At some point I feel like I actually have stress on my shoulder, and it's probably that I put it from myself, but I feel like I can't gain and or be as open-minded, and I'm always like practicing the same thing, and I get really like a narrow focus instead of when I know I have nothing coming up for a month or 2, I can be, oh, let me explore a new area. Maybe I want to like test my defense or just change my game, or like worst case scenario, okay, let people pass and try to like figure out something else. And
you're not like worried about building bad habits like for this week.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. So I feel for me, it's been helping every time I do it. I get the itch of competing. You know, I'm like, I want to go back and fucking compete. Like last time I competed, that was a while ago too. But like when we're getting ready for the quintet with Team TriStar, and you guys were there, Team Planet. I was supposed to compete, and I was hungry for it. I was like excited actually, because it had been like maybe 2 months without competition. So that's always a good, like a fun way to feel, you know.
You kind of want it. It's different too. Like on the way up. I mean, listen, I know you guys aren't black belts, but you're black belts. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where that stuff's nonsense. Like
thanks, but
once you're once you're at that point where you're competing with world class black belts, like I used to have a lot of fun competing 15, 16 times a year. And then when I realized the amount of focus it takes to give respect to the opponents that I'm fighting now, like I was like, oh, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not exactly the same. It's not like do 5 Nagas this month and work on trying your new moves under the stress of competition. If you try that with Enrico Coco or fucking Dan Martinez or any of the guys that maybe not everybody's heard of, but we know who they are and they're really good, you're gonna get fucking raped. So like that's just not it's not the same. It changes when the focus is like a really high requirement.
Yeah, you got to come in like more than ready. You know, it's like you like obviously you don't want to fuck around. And if there's money on the line, if there's like high prizes or like high level people, so. Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
You want it to be worth it, because like it's for me, like as a guy who's like, I'm not a terrific athlete, and I have only been doing jiu-jitsu 8 years. You know, most of the guys that I'm facing at black belt in the last year have like tremendous physical advantages over me, and like if I'm focused, I'm like, holy shit, I can hang. Like I can hang and I can win sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, I don't just lose; I get wrecked, and it's a big difference between like, oh shit, you surprised that guy and beat him and no one thought you'd beat him. And oh, you got fucking smoked in 10 seconds. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I know I could have done the same in either match, depending on where my head was at.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I hear you. Interesting point.
I feel like I said, like you want to, that's why I like to have like downtime where I still train as much, but like I'm very, very relaxed, and I come in, I don't have to compete with the room too, in the training session. You know what I mean? Where like, I don't want anyone to fucking pass my guard because I'm taking it so seriously because I'm preparing for something, as opposed to, I don't like people passing my guard, but sometimes if I play around, it doesn't really matter. You know, if I don't care, it doesn't really matter. If I start caring about it, then it matters. Mm-hmm. So,
and it's that's not, a big difference. You want to be able to train in both those sort of mental spaces sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it was beneficial. That's pretty much it. Guys, we've been going for quite a bit already, and it's been fun actually, but I think we're going to keep it like to the usual, right? Cool. An hour 30. Yeah. Corey, thank you so much again
thanks for having me.
It was fun, and it just like went like easy the whole time. So you're welcome anytime.
I'm not doing much right now, so anytime you guys want to have me on, it's a pleasure. It gives me something to do, talk jiu-jitsu.
We're gonna talk jiu-jitsu for sure, and what we're gonna try to do is maybe do like a breakdown, all of us together, like go through a couple sequences and maybe just break them down and see what you think, what PO thinks, what Val thinks, and then just.
I'd love to get inside your guys' head with a match. That'd be great.
We have huge demand for gi matches, actually.
Dude, we could, man.
So, Taza had some ideas for matches. So Corey, we'll get back to you to do a breakdown, and then maybe we'll do one at some point live too. We're talking about that. That could be fun.
So I think people would like that.
Yeah. So thanks for coming in. And do you have anything to say or to plug right before we let you go?
Listen, just that I know this is tough for everybody, and I want to say stay connected to your friends and your family and your jiu-jitsu crew. Keep talking to your jiu-jitsu people, keep studying. You get a lot out of that. And this isn't forever. Nothing ever is. So
yeah. All right, man.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you. Man. Take care, buddy.
In touch, man.
Take care.
And we are
we're still there.
And Corey Guitar, Mr. Corey has left the chat. Without any further ado, guys, shall we transition to the support?
Transition.
Yeah, we got the green light. So first off, let's give a big thanks to Val, despite a busy schedule, keeping that podcast running. Number one, Mizu Studio. Shout out to you guys. We can't wait to be back on the mats. You know what I miss? I miss having a bad jiu-jitsu session. Like, you train? No, I'm serious. I miss the day where I'm pushing it and I'm training and I have a bad session. I'm like, whatever, tomorrow I'll fuck this guy up. I'll get him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like even if it's bad, you still train. You know what I mean?
At least you got a session in.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how's it for you, but for me, no matter how many exercises I do exercising, it's never the same.
No, it won't be. I've been pushing myself like crazy. I've started changing my workout, so I'm as exhausted as jiu-jitsu, and I am, to be honest. But there's the only satisfaction that I already get from jiu-jitsu is being exhausted. So okay, that's number one. But I don't improve my game, so it's not as good. It will never be. But I think everybody can agree. But
next up, we got Scramble gear, fam. Quality gear. I'm wearing this shirt that I was wearing literally every day, almost every day during ADCC camp. I packed 3-4 shirts, and it's still here. So quality Scramble. We got Scramble Canada. The store is still up and running. Go get something. Yep. Support. Give us that morale. Yep. Give us that morale, baby. We need it. Everybody needs it. Yeah. You guys got promo codes. PO's got one. Put it in. Save some cash. Support. We got new releases also. They dropped a couple of shirts. Summer's coming. Make your biceps look 30% bigger, juicier. Look at that.
There you go. There you go. Look at that flex, that meat. All right, next up we have Roll Forever. Betty supporting us, the usual. Betty is actually one of the first Patreon too. So big thank you, because we have a Patreon now, so you guys can come and support us online if you want. Like we said, it's not the best time to set up like tiers and stuff like that, but it's gonna be coming. We're gonna talk about it. Maybe have like if you guys want to have breakdown and stuff like that, we'll be able to figure out something.
Obviously, support if it's at any cost to your well-being, you know. If you're short on money, if you got laid off and you're still enjoying the podcast, just click this like button, subscribe. It's gonna be leave a review, a comment, stay engaged, you know.
Exactly. If you guys don't agree with what we said about the gi, you guys can keep that debate going. I'd be more than glad to retort.
Talk that shit. Yeah, if you guys at least, like Val said, as long as you subscribe and you keep the conversation going, we'll be happy to give you podcasts. It's fun for us. We do it every week. They'll still be there no matter what.
It's almost more for me than for anybody else. Like for me doing this, and then like the very little that I'm doing personally with like the breakdowns and whatnot, you get like good comments. It's fulfilling, man. You don't get money out of it, but it still feels like that part of it still hasn't left. Like despite the quarantine and whatnot, it still feels fulfilling to get these messages, bro. I like the breakdowns. I like what you guys are doing. Keep it up. So guys, thank you very much for that. Like that positive morale, you know, it comes in handy and it could make our days sometimes too, you know, especially now.
And since we're saying we're missing bad days, you can send us some shit too if you want. We'll take it.
Go for it. Physio Mentum, they're doing online sessions. If you got any injuries, anything you want to ask, you want to show, you want to do certain move, tell them, listen, when I do this, it hurts. When I do that, they'll take care of it. They'll give you a couple of exercises you can do. There are things you don't need equipment to. You can do against the wall. You can do on the floor. You can really go and very, very fundamental, basic stuff, body weight. I guess that's it. We kind of mentioned everybody, haven't we?
Yeah, pretty sure we did.
Yeah. Guys, with that being said, thank you very much for tuning in to our listeners. We love you. We miss you. And Valerio, Peo, nice catching up with you guys once again.
Yes, same.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Safe in it.